remember speeches, articles, scripts, and anecdotes. To the confused and nervous speaker was introduced after he approached the microphone and murmured haltingly, "My friends, when I arrived here this evening, only God and I knew what I was going to say. Now only God knows." I guess not one of the most embarrassing things that can happen is a person to forget the speech while in front of his audience. Next to forgetting the speech is the embarrassment of faltering along as if you're not sure of what you have to say. Actually, it seems to me that anyone who is asked to give a talk on any particular subject must know that subject pretty well. Otherwise, why would you be asked to talk about it? Most speakers who falter or hesitate during their speech do so, I think, because they have forgotten the next word, or because they are fearful that they will forget the next word. There is my opinion, lies the problem in a speech is memorized word for word, and when a word here and there is forgotten, surely will not be delivered as it should be. Why should you have to grope for the particular word if you can't think of it? Why use any other word that serves the same purpose? Isn't that much better than hemming and hawing until you remember the exact phrase, just the way you have memorized it? The people who realized this felt that the next best thing would be to simply read the speech. This solves the problem of forgetting words until you lose your place on the paper and forget you're talking about altogether. Besides, it seems to me that there is a subtle annoyance evident in an audience that is listening to someone reading a speech word for word. I know I feel that way. He might just as well have given me a printed copy of the speech to read at my own leisure. So the next step seems to be not to prepare at all. Well, not. He might just have given me a printed copy of the speech to read at my leisure. So the next step seems not to prepare at all. Well, not quite. Even if you are well versed in your subject, you may forget some of the facts you want to speak about, as in the case of itinerant preacher and the itinerant preacher, who always complained that he made his best speeches on the way home. All that he had forgotten to tell his listeners came to mind then, and his horse usually got the best part of the speech. I believe that the best way to prepare a speech is to lay it out, though for thought. Many of our better speakers do just that. They simply make a list of each idea or thought that they want to talk about and use this list in lieu of notes. In this way, you can't forget words, since you haven't memorized any. You can hardly lose your place. One glance at your list will show you the next thought to put into words. But for those of you who would rather not rely on a piece of paper, the link method can help you easily. If you wish to memorize your speech through dot for dot, from the beginning to the end, you would be forming a sequence that's why you would use the link method of memory to memorize it. I would suggest that you would go about it like this. First, write out or read the entire speech. When you are satisfied with it, read it over once or twice more to get the gist of it. Now get yourself a piece of paper and start to list keywords. Read the first thought of the speech. This might be contained in one or two sentences. It doesn't matter. Now select one word or phrase from these sentences which you think will bring the entire lot to mind. That is not at all difficult. In every sentence or paragraph, there must be a one word or phrase which will remind you of the entire thought. That one word or phrase or keyword. After you have found the keyword for the first thought, find one for the next thought, and so on. When you're through with the whole speech, you'll have a list of keys to remind you of each thing you want to say. Actually, if you were to keep this list in front of you as you made the speech, it would serve the purpose. But if you've mastered the link system, you know that it is just as easy to make a link of keywords, and then throw away the paper. You might, for example, be given a talk on your local school problem at Parent-Teacher Association meeting. Your list of keywords might look something like this: crowds, teachers, fire, furniture, subject, playground, etc. In other words, you wish to start your speech with reference to crowded conditions in the classroom. When you want to talk about the teachers, perhaps the method and salaries, etc. Now you express your thought on fire drills and fire precautions, which lead you into your discussion on the state of schools' furniture and desks, chairs, blackboards, equipment, and so on. Now you would talk about your ideas on the subject taught, and finally, recreation, playground facilities of the school. You can see that if you make a link crowd associated to the teacher to fire to furniture, etc., each thought would lead you to the next one, right through to the end of the speech. At first, you may have a list, perhaps 2 or 3 keywords. For some thoughts, list as many as you need to remember the entire speech. As you use the ideas, the amount of keys necessary will be less and less, and most important, the confidence you gain by knowing that you remember your talk will show when you deliver it. Just keep in mind that you must take care of the thoughts. The words will take care of themselves. If for some reason or other you wish to memorize a speech word for word, Use the same method. You'll just have to go over it more often. Remember that all these systems are aid you to true memory. If you remember the main incidentals will fall into place. You actually never forget anything you remembered. You just have to remember it. You have to be reminded of it. The system in this book will do that for you. So if you remember the main thought of your speech, the incidentals and ifs and the buts will fall into place. The same ideas are used to memorize any article you read. If you desire first read the article, of course, to get the gist of it. Then pick out the keywords for each time. Then make a link to remember them, and you've got it. With a bit of practice, you'll actually be able to do this as you read. Many times while reading for enjoyment, I'll come across some piece of information that I'd like to remember. I simply make a conscious association of it. While I'm reading this idea can use enough speed up your reading considerably. I think that most people are slow readers because by the time they've read the third paragraph, they've forgotten what was in the first paragraph. So they have to jump back. There is no need to associate everything, just the points that you feel are necessary to remember. Perhaps if you use my system, you will fall into the first class of readers in American Educator. William Lyon Phelps, 2 classes, he once said, I divide all readers into 2 classes, those who read to remember, those who read to forget, and those who read to forget. The same system of linking keywords can be used for remembering lyrics and scripts. Of course, in this case, it is usually unnecessary to memorize the words. For words, you will have to go over them more often. But the keyword idea will make the job that much easier for you. If you have trouble memorizing your cues in a play, why not associate the last word of the other actor's line to the first word of your line? Even if your cue tells you that you must perform an action instead of speaking a line, you still associate it. If the last word of the line prior to your action happens to say walk, and the script calls you to stop down to pick up a cigarette, but make a picture in your mind of yourself walking along and continually stopping to pick up cigarette butts. In this way, you will never walk on another actor's line. I'll mention one other use of the key word idea. Before leaving it entirely, how many times have you wanted to tell your friend some joke or anecdote that you recently heard, only to find out you forgot them completely? You can hear a whole batch of really funny stories one day and then have them all, or most of them, slip your mind the next. Well, according to Irvin S. Cobb, a good storyteller is a person who has a good memory and hopes other people haven't. Your memory of stories and anecdotes will improve immediately if you use the keyword system. Just take one word from the story. A word from the punchline is usually best. That will bring the entire joke to mind. When you get your key words, you can either link them to each other to remember all stories in sequence, or use the PEG system to remember them by number. Perhaps you've heard the gag that has been making rounds recently about the flying saucer that landed in America. Out stepped a creature from outer space, brushed himself off with one of his 6 arms, looked around with one large eye in the center of his forehead, and kept his antenna alert for any sound. After exploring a bit, he finally approached a gas station, walked over to the gasoline pump, saluted, and demanded, "Take me to your president." Well, if you hadn't heard of this and wanted to remember it, perhaps 10 or 12 other stories, you could use flying saucer, creature from outer space, or gasoline pump as your key word for this story. Any one of these would surely bring the entire story to mind, if you liked it in the first place. Although I'm sure that many of you will find some practical use for it. One of the memory stunts I sometimes use in my shows is the magazine test. This usually causes a bit of comment because it seems to be the most amazing for memory feats. Actually, it is basic and simple. What happens is this: the audience is given some copies of a current magazine. I usually use Temple Magazine, which is published by Enterprise Magazine Inc. They are then asked to call any page number, and I immediately tell them the highlights of the particular page. This is merely another use of the PEG system of memory. In some instances, the link method is used in conjunction with a PEG, as will be explained directly to memorize the pages of any picture magazine. All you have to do is to associate the PEG word that represents the page number to the highlight of the page of that page. For example, if page 1 has a picture of an airplane on it, you would make a ridiculous association between tick 1 and airplane. Page 2 might be an advertisement for a shoe polish. Associate Noah to shoe polish. Page 3 has a picture of a horse on it. Associate Ma with horse. Page 4 might have a picture of a circus scene. Just associate Rai with circus. Page 5 is an advertisement for a television set. Associate La to television set. Page 6 is a book review. Associate shoe to book. That's all there is to it. If you go over the magazine, your associations 2 or 3 times, you will know the highlights of every page. If a page has more than one picture on it, use the link method to remember them. Assume that page 14 is a fashion page, and it has a picture of a hat, one of the gloves, and third of a dress. First associate tire 14 to the first picture, which of a hat. Now link hat to glove, and then glove to dress. When page 14 is called the peg word, will remind you of hat. Hat will tell you that the next page is glove, and glove will remind you of dress. If you have seen my performance, you will know that I tell the audience on what part of the page the picture is located. Whether it is on the lower or upper left part of the page, upper or lower right or center, etc. Well, you can do this too, and without any extra effort, as I already mentioned. You normally or true memory does most of the work for you. These systems are just aids that make it easier. As you use my systems, you'll find your true memory getting stronger. The best example of this is in memorizing a magazine. In order to make the association in the first place, you must really see and observe the picture of the page. Because of this, when any page number is called, the peg word for that number acts as an aid to enable you to almost reproduce the entire page in your mind's eye. You will know on what part of the page the picture is located. You can only prove this yourself by trying it. The only thing you will not be able to do as yet is to remember the names of any people pictured on the pages. This problem will be solved for you after you read the chapter on remembering names and faces and how to utilize substitute words or thoughts. Before reading any further, learn the last of the 100 pegs. 76, cage 77, poke 78, cave 79, cob 80, fez 81, fit 50, 82, phone 83, foam 84, fur 85, file 86, fish 87, fog 88, fife 89, fob 90, bus 91, bat 92, bone 93, bum 94, beer 95, bell 96, beach 97, book 98, buff 99, pipe 100, thesis or disease. For cob, picture corn on the cob. For fit, you can picture an elliptic fit or gyro type fit. For file, you can use kither, a filing cabinet, or a nail file. For fob is watch fob. For bat, picture a baseball bat. For puff, picture a lady's powder puff. And for pipe, see a man smoking pipe. After learning these, you should be able to count from 1 to 100 quickly with your peg words. Only the beauty of it is that you don't have to take any time out to practice them. If you're traveling to work or doing anything that doesn't require the thought, you can go over all the pegs in your mind. If you go over them just every once in a while, you'll soon be familiar to you as the numbers from 1 to 100.